Hello, and welcome to another queer book review, where we talk about gay books and all of that. This month, August, we read The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This book takes place in 1700s England and then the continent of Europe. This book is about a teenager named Monty who goes touring around Europe with his sister and his best friend Percy. Monty is what we would call a problem child. He is a disaster. And the reason that they're doing this tour is because he got kicked out of school and he's going to be tutored while he travels around the continent getting cultured. They bring his best friend with him because he's his best friend, and they were like, fuck it, whatever. And then his best friend is going away to law school, and the sister is going to finishing school in the south of France. So, that is where the story picks up. I'm gonna say right here, before I get into anything spoilery or whatever, I did give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. This is like a 500-page book, and like, it reads... It's kind of like what we say about, what I say about wine, and it's that it goes down like water. The same thing can be said for this book, is that it was like, it like went down like water, meaning it was very quick to read. I read it in like 2 days, maybe 3, because I just like had a lot that I was doing. I did have a friend, Matt, who also read this book. He started it the same day that I started it, but he read it in 1 day. This book was very, very good. Now I'm going to put it down, and from that point on, like, you might get spoiled a little bit. I'm going to try and keep it as spoil-free as possible, but I think a lot of the elements that were really interesting about this book were somewhat spoilery. So this book seems like it's going to be just about, like, a white boy and whatever. But the thing is that Monty is a bisexual character, and he's at the forefront of this book, obviously, because he's the main character. And then he's in love with his best friend, Percy. His best friend, Percy, is a black bastard, and I say that like he's a bastard. He was born into an unlegitimate marriage, and so like that's the term. And Monty has been in love with Percy for the last like 2 years or so, and he doesn't think that Percy feels the same way as him. So there's this like awesome like unrequited love going on, and then the sister is in Monty's mind just like a bitch. She's just a bitch. And when they are first in Paris, Monty and Percy share a kiss, and it's like everything that Monty had been wanting for forever, and Percy says, hey, does this mean something to you? And Monty's like, yes, and then he freaks out and he goes, wait, no, it doesn't mean anything to me, and then they're sort of like butting heads for the rest of the book, because they aren't necessarily on the same page romantically. They go to this party at Versailles, and Monty gets in trouble. He ends up stealing a box, and then they end up getting attacked on the road when they're traveling to Marseille, and they end up, Monty, Percy, and the sister Felicity end up all sort of like on the run from the Duke that Monty stole from and whoever he hired that may or may not kill them. They end up going to Barcelona, where they meet the children of the person whose box it is. And they find out that it's sort of, they're wrapped up in this whole scheme with like alchemy, and then it leads to pirates, and so I'm going to try and keep it like less spoilery there, but they end up then going to Venice, which is awesome because I was just in Venice, and I was also just in Paris, so it was very cool reading this, being like, oh, these places are awesome, and I was there. When they're in Marseille, they find out that Percy has epilepsy because he has an epileptic fit, and then that adds another layer of like tension to Monty and Percy's relationship because like, well, Monty doesn't want Percy to be sick, and then Percy tells him that he is supposed to be going to an asylum in Holland, not law school, and that freaks Monty out, and because they get wrapped up in this whole alchemy thing, they sort of basically look for the Philosopher's Stone to cure Percy's epilepsy. Obviously, we all know it wouldn't work, so it doesn't really matter, but yeah. And so they sort of get, like, wrapped up in this whole thing. They're on the run for most of the book. And it's really interesting because you have a disabled character and you have well, the disabled characters is also black. So you have a black disabled character. You have a bisexual male character, which is something that you don't really get represented, which is, like, great that, yeah. Although I think because of the time period, there is more emphasis on his attraction to men, and especially because he has such an interest in Percy, the attraction to men is further emphasized in the book, even though it's pretty explicitly he is bisexual. And then the sister Felicity she falls into a lot of tropes, but it's still kind of interesting of her being, like, you know, the smart one who doesn't want to go to finishing school and wants to be a doctor. Like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like I've read so many stories that take place in the same time period where there's a female character that's like this. And it's like she has to be the smart one, and she has to be the one that wants to go be a doctor. Ugh. So, whatever. Like, that element was just kind of like, I've read this before. I know the story. I know how it goes. But at the same point, it was nice because the other characters weren't like that so much. There's not much else I can really tell you about the book without spoiling. It was really, really good. I did feel, like, really compelled by the characters, even though, you know, at times they did feel, like, somewhat hollow. But that's typical because they're teenagers, and it's also YA, and so it's plot-driven, not character-driven. So yeah. I do want to mention that Mackenzie Lee was in some shit on Twitter recently for saying something about two genders, and I want to say that, like, I do think that the criticism against her on this is incredibly stupid, and I can say this as a non-binary person, and you can't say anything back to me because I'm not either one of the two genders, but I don't think that it's an important thing enough to, like, be like, meh, fuck you and your writing. So I think that, like, it's a stupid thing to get your ants in your pants about because the book is very, very good. And it's also the first in a trilogy, I believe. I do think that the second book is about Felicity the sister. So that is interesting to me because there's also some points that make it sound like she might be Ace, which would be very cool to read another Ace book because we know that they are few and far between, and the one that we did read was bad. And also, it'd be great to continue a trilogy in this thing that I do of queer books. Like I said, 5 stars. It was a very good book. It's not a book that I think is deserving of more than 5 stars, the way that I really, really, really enjoyed I'll Give You the Sun, and the way that I really enjoy Invincible Summer by Hannah. But it's a 5-star book. It's a 5-star book. It's not a 4-star book. Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. Highly, 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 highly recommend. And the next book that we will be reading, the one for September, is Every Day by David Levithan, which is going to be the book that fills the non-binary category and also will really be a struggle to get through because I don't like David Levithan. But my friend gave me this book, and I need a book with a non-binary character, so we're just gonna have to suffer through it, and probably I will get my Patreon, like, refunctioning to what I want to actually offer you guys, and by the time I do this book, patrons for that month... No. I'm gonna make a promise to you. I'm gonna fix my Patreon, and patrons who are patrons by the beginning of September, or any time in September, people who become patrons in September, for September, will get a review of the movie of this book. I know it's a big promise for me to make. I hope I don't fall through with it, but figured if there is this and then there's also a movie, I should do a review for the movie. Also, whenever I can get to seeing The Miseducation of Cameron Post, I'll do a review for that for my patrons, because I need to incentivize you guys to give me money, because how else am I going to feed Bulby? Thank you all for watching. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I would love, 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 love to hear your thoughts. And I would love for you to become patrons, which there is going to be the link to my Patreon down below. And things about, like, the tiers might be changing, but not by much. There's going to be, like, a Discord, and I'm probably going to do movie reviews for the queer books that we read, things like that. I also want you to click on my podcasts. I have so many of those because I don't know what else to do with myself. Also, you should share these videos with your friends, because there's an end game to this all, which is that if you watch these videos and you like them and you share them, then more people will be watching my videos, and then that means that I could continue doing this, and then when I get an actual book deal one day, you guys might read that, and then I might actually get published, because a publisher might be like, oh yeah, you aren't a loser. You actually have people that will buy your book. So that's why I'm asking you to do all these things. But of course, you don't have to. And if you don't watch me, you'll probably be watching someone else. Hopefully someone funny, like Danny Gonzalez. Thank you. I may be hitting you guys with another video about this book with my friend Matt Vitullo, but this video will go up first. And then the next queer book review will be at the end of September. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.